We are, of course, engaging in a spot of transfer business over on stream right about now, and the good thing with us going into Season 3 is that a lot of the scouting tricks that I like to employ have finally started to become properly usable. Incoming Wonder Kid from Burkina Faso. So join us over there after you've caught up with all the good stuff from Season 2, and of course the VODs are on the second channel, linked in the description. Firstly, with the latest patch/content update, changes have been made which finally fix coefficients on the European level. Not just a little bit fixed and broken in other ways, actually properly fixed. It applies to the current season of your save that you're in, as well as any subsequent seasons that you do after that, and it does apply to existing saves. It doesn't fix the past seasons, obviously, because that would have huge implications going forward, and if Back to the Future has taught us anything, doing that will make your own mum fall in love with you. Our expectations coming into this season were a tough one to figure out, because we'd been dominant towards the end of last year, 32 games unbeaten in the league, and had ran away with it. But where does that slot in amongst the hegemony of the top flight in Poland? The goal was to survive comfortably and try to stabilise. The bookies had us as the 10th best team in the league this year after we'd made a couple of signings. It's the earliest screenshot I could get, but that's where we were expected to finish, and I'd have absolutely taken that. But I believed with the right recruitment we could maybe even squeak into the top half should the tactic and the players click in this season. But we would need to get rid of some dead wood first, with all of the wage rise clauses coming into effect upon our promotion. Bad times. Oh my god. And my complete and utter incompetence. Start sending some players out on loan? Left behind by the rivals? Well, he's saying nothing, is he? Oh. I nearly accidentally resigned there. I was this close to pulling a work the space there. So first, let's talk about who's gone. Last year's backup right back, Raul Giguère, left to a better place, although he appears to be injured. But the much bigger deal was the sale of Marko Božić to Bruk Brno, who had, frankly, bewildered us by slapping £1.2 million on the table for a player that we didn't even really want. Not just that, it could rise to 1.5 million. So naturally, I questioned it heavily. What's the catch? Is it monopoly money? After being assured that it wasn't, we let the deal go through and suddenly had ourselves even more money to spend this summer. Not that we felt that we would really need it. And other than loaning out Federico Duarte, that was all we really did as far as outs over the course of the summer. A few players had left on freeze, but really it was mostly the same guys as last year, and we needed to then strengthen for the top flight. And we did so immediately, signing Iyad Midani, 21-year-old Tunisian midfielder that could drop back and crucially, into the CM role, which of course would give us backup for Koziemka while he was still getting used to that new position in the team. But we also didn't want to take away some of his thunder. We just needed rotation options. And Madani was happy to come in and provide that. 3.4k a week is a good amount of wages, but we felt the potential was worth it. And for £130,000, which is what we paid, decent. Some might even say solid. Not me, but some people. Then we decided to do what all clubs do. They just find players who are related to other players, and it works out perfectly. As we dropped £71,000 on Eliano Reinders, the 25-year-old Indonesian international, famously the brother of Manchester City's Tjani Reinders. They both play for different countries though, which is cool. And the idea with Reinders was a very simple one. He can cover every position imaginable, and that was more than enough for me to bring him in, especially on that kind of deal. £3,500 a week is a fair whack, but we still felt that he'd find a place in this team and could maybe even take over the starting role from Lelefeld. But goalkeeping, we felt, was our biggest issue last year in many ways, and this year we wanted to improve that, and we did, with Mohamed Khalifa, Iranian, 21 years old, £475,000, easily the most money we'd spend over the summer, but I would say well worth it. 6'4", insane jumping reach. He can reach things off not just the top shelf, the shelf above that you didn't even know was there because you can't see it. We then splashed out £135,000 on 20-year-old Gilbert Bandama, who I definitely didn't call Bandana many times over the course of the season. Regardless though, he was excellent. Now the original plan with him, quite simply, was to play him as a CM, give us a bit more depth there with James, and of course Duda, teach him how to play the DM role too. However, we kind of realised that that might be quite difficult, but he'd do it anyway. Vision was spectacular. His passing ability alone made him far more valuable than some of the other players we had in those positions. And genuinely, that was the last of the paid transfers we made in the entire summer. As first, we signed Innocent Benza. Yeah, that's right. He's 54. I accidentally sorted the player database the wrong way. Chat saw him and maybe sign him. What can I do? I had no say in it at all. More on him later. A much more fruitful free signing though was Ablai Fai. I'm genuinely amazed. The one thing he lacks is aerial ability. He may be 6 foot tall, but he just isn't an aerially gifted player. Luckily though, his tackling, marking, positioning, aggression, bravery, concentration, he's all things except an aerial beast. On the floor, he's wonderful. And given the type of passing we like to do, having 14 passing certainly doesn't hurt him as well. Arguably only rivaled by Giacomo Stabile. 21 years old, on a free transfer, was released from Juve Stabia in the second tier of Italy last season. He didn't play in Serie A, but he came through at Inter. Has a bit more aerial presence. 6'2", good in the air, nowhere near as good technically, but between them we figured that even if they weren't always starting together, which they would unlikely be because of Grujic and Wazicki's impression on the team from last year, they certainly weren't being booted out, but what we wanted was depth. And with these two freebies on relatively cheap wages, oh boy did we get it. And then finally, a striker. It took way too long to actually sign a striker. Story on him in a minute, but first, yes, 28-year-old striker, Poromet Arjarai, Thai international, £3,500 a week. We were scrambling. After selling Bozic, and only really having Rodado because Nikai's loan had finished, we were really down to the bare bones as far as strikers go, and Poromet took forever to decide to actually sign for us. But when he did, on a free transfer, reasonable player, just kind of okay across the board, but decent. Maybe have good sell-on value. Much like buses, they all come along at once, as Soibu Kebe also signed for us, but this time for sort of youngster for the future. A bit more pace about him, a little bit less technicals. In the end, we actually decided to loan him out to Polonia Volshvar in the second tier to give him a bit more football. But we were still very happy when we found out what his wage could potentially be. To worry about playing him every game, although in before he now wants to play loads. Do you know, chat, I think I might just do that. Don't ask me why. I've got a theory that we probably should just sign him. But then a real gem. Dario Vandenbos. 30-year-old, admittedly, Belgian DM/centre-back. We kind of figured that with Omic getting a lot of interest from other places and still being quite young, having more depth there was going to be very, very important for us this year. And another freebie in the form of Vandenbos was the man. £4,500 a week, so quite a lot, but only accepting a squad player role in the team. The idea being he'd sit in the centre of our centre-backs and then push into midfield because he had reasonable passing, good enough vision, was tall, a powerful man I expected big things from. And then finally, even more depth in the form of Facundo Moura, 27-year-old Argentinian, left-back/right-back, the idea being that he could basically cover off a little bit on the left-hand side if Godfrey Steven wasn't doing so well behind Krzyżanowski, and give us cover for the right, although mostly he ended up playing on the left, interestingly, even though it's not really his best role. Then a cheeky little Belgian amateur, because it's just what we do here. Morgan Baquet-Cellier, just sort of showing him off because it still works. The 5-star potential regens from Belgium still work. And with that, we decided it couldn't hurt to bring in one final striker, just to really make sure we had enough after having none. Simone Matsoki had come in on trial, but had asked for £13,000 a week. We said no, came back much later in the window, and he would agree to 7, which is still a lot, and made him one of our highest paid players at the club. But we truly believe that a pairing of him and Rodado, with the other two in behind, could definitely give us a huge depth of strikers this season, and we hope that he could be him. Again, he's just decent across the board. And our last signing was a massive surprise. We'd scouted a couple of teams relegated from the second tier and had a look at some of their youth intake players. Alexander Furman was one of them. We signed him from Stol Rezhov, and my goodness me, he's pacey. He's got good finishing. Can't dribble to save his life, but that's okay. Looked to have decent potential, and for £78,000, we figured he was worth a punt. And honestly, when he joined us, he was even better than we thought he'd be. He was expected to be an under-19 kind of dude. No, this guy was straight into the first team and may end up actually getting some performances for us this season, and that was an exciting thought. Keep an eye. Remember the name, because he may well have just been a present in disguise. And speaking of presents, with Christmas coming up, you'll no doubt be looking for some of your own, and therefore it's just as well that this video is brought to us by Full-Time Prints. They make brilliant Christmas gifts for the football lover in your life, celebrating iconic moments from that night in Istanbul to Clint Dempsey's chip against Juventus. And if you don't see the moment you want, they'll happily make a custom one just for you. For December, you can get 10% off any print you like with the code SYC at checkout, or just use the link in the description. Thanks again to Full-Time Prints for sponsoring this video. Something I didn't do so much in previous recaps was focus on some of the players that are already here and give you a chance to look at some of their profiles as they develop. So I'm going to highlight a few of them each time as we go along that will be key performers for us over the course of the season. The first, of course, was Angel Rodado. He's just very good, isn't he? Earning a lot of money, but very much valued and earned it a lot last year. Jakub Krzyżanowski, of course, 20 years old, left wing back extraordinaire. We're expecting big things from him this season too as he continues to develop. And the exact same thing can be said for Maciej Kuziemko, also 20 years old, still learning that central midfield drop back role, which definitely does help, or rather hinder his consistency at times, but this is a big season for him. Can he handle it in the top flight? Despite us making signings in the summer, James Igbekeme was still expected to form a pivotal role in this team because the man is just totally clutch. Sometimes players are just better than their attributes, all right? And James is one of them. And so is his midfield partner, Duda. We may have got those other guys in there too, but I still feel like these two form the main linchpin of this team. And that, of course, led us up to our first league game back in the top flight, except for one slight problem. Because of the fact that I mentioned the Thai guy took so long to sign for us, I'd misjudged when our first league match of the season was, thought it was a week later, got to the game and realised that we actually only had one registerable striker, Angel Rodado. We played two strikers, which meant our choices were 54-year-old Innocent Benza or a 15-year-old from our youth intake from last season, Marcin Wroblewski, otherwise known as the wardrobe of low intelligence. Oh, look at the flicks. It's Koziemka! Yes!
Fiona!
Look at this little flick. The 16-year-old with the little chop between the legs. You might still find it. Bandama. Koziemka is off the post again, and he's put over the line by Wroblewski. The 16-year-old on his league debut has scored in the top flight of Poland. As it turns out, he was the perfect man for the job, as we actually managed to do it. An incredible win on our opening day at home, being 2-0 up with some of his brilliant play. He really had no right to be that good, but he did. Set up a goal, scored a goal. We were then pegged back, but it didn't matter because we were making it 3-1 after that through Duda with another assist from Wroblewski. The man was on fire. I say the man, he's a boy at this stage, but he got us our first win in the top flight and a huge return to it as well. It also made him the youngest ever goal scorer in the history of the Ekstraklasa, and not even just to us, but ever, by about 4 months as well. Not even close. And while he's absolutely not a bad player, and amazingly, we massively undervalued him from our youth intake when he'd originally come through. I think he was 3.5-star PA, but upon moving him to the first team squad, all of a sudden, we were getting better readings on him. That might just mean that our coaches are worse than our scouts, though, in fairness. It was then straight back into action, away at a team that had come up with us, and we didn't really get the result that we were looking for in this one. Went behind to a genuinely fabulous chip over our newly appointed goalkeeper, which wasn't the best start, but did at least manage to get an equaliser through Iyad Madani with a low-driven finish. Love to see it, but would have been nice to win, as these were the winnable games. Unfortunately, our inability to win a game continued into the next, as another 1-1 draw was on the cards, Rodado scoring his first in the top flight, but we were then pegged back from the penalty spot. Things were even worse away at Piasklewice, as we went 2-0 down inside 24 minutes, but were at least able to come back with Koziemka scoring his first in the top flight and Rodado adding another. A solid start for the lads, especially as that did actually leave us unbeaten after 4 matches, and that now made it 36 league games since we'd last lost a game, which was pretty impressive. And then we'd have to face off against Jagiellonia Białystok in the next match. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, we were roundly beaten by them, quite frankly. David Drakel, 2 goals for him. We were not really at the races today, and that did now make it 4 games in the league without a win, and just 1 win from our first 5 matches. But at least we'd got some points out of that and weren't losing too much, especially as we then had to face reigning champions Rakov away in our next match. And my goodness me, we pulled off easily our best result of the season away from home. Karamov with the winning goal for us. We changed our tactics slightly to go a bit wider in this one in the second half, and it made the world of difference under the lights. Huge win, and what a goal from him. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted not a lot of goals from some of the new strikers we brought in. They were really struggling to bed in. Admittedly, some of them didn't sign until a bit later in the window, but even so. And all that left us 6 games in, 9 points on the board, 8 goals scored, 8 conceded, 9 goal difference. Just slap bang in 9th spot, exactly where we expected to be, and with a massive win over Rakov in there as well. Shout out to Cracovia, last year's 2nd place team, bottom of the league after 6. Not a great start from them, or the reigning champions for that matter. Then it was back to the league, and this absolute monstrosity of a game. 7-3 victory over Lechia Gdansk. We have no idea where this came from. 2 goals for Rodado. Koziemka grabbed 1. 2 from Duda. That equaled his tally from last year entirely. Midani grabbed 1. Kebe even got 1. That was an absolutely wonderfully worked move, all the way from the end of our defence, straight through the team. The ball eventually came to him, and he was able to slot home another goal for us. But leaky at the back, a lot of goals going forward. Don't know where that came from. We only scored 8 in our first 6 and then 7 goals against Lechia. Wild game. Made even better by a 3-1 victory away at Motor Lublin with a beautiful daisy cutter goal from Matija Koziemka to make it 3-1. Followed by the most boring derby in the history of the world. As you'd expect, they can't score. We used all our goals on Lechia. Luckily, we were straight back in action again away at GKS Katowice, and it was obliteration again. 2 goals for Duda in the first half, 1 for Koziemka again. Krzyżanowski on the scoreline as well. Koziemka grabbed another in the second half to make it 5-0. We'd scored 4 times in 13 minutes in this game. We got a couple of late ones scored against us when we got complacent and I made subs, but still, the goal scoring had woken the hell up. And it was mostly the guys contributing from last season, which then continued into a 2-0 victory at home against, forgive my pronunciation, Łukasz Łódź. Forgive me on that one. 2-0 though. Rodado, Koziemka, the main scoring pair. They were flying, which meant that when it did come to an end, it came to an end in weird places. Former Polish international Kamil Grzycki scored a beautiful free kick, and we could do nothing about it for the defeat. On the plus side though, 12 games into the season, and suddenly we'd gone from mid-table mediocrity to absolutely rocketing up to 3rd place. 22 points on the board, 25 goals being scored now. All of a sudden we found out how to score goals, and we were actually now only 4 points off the top. Koziemka at this point had got 8 goals in 11 starts. Duda had netted 5 times already, which is already more than double what he got in the whole of last year. The goals were just coming from strange places, and Rodado was was one of them, but not to the extent we'd expected. And all this despite not changing the tactic. But genuinely, spare a thought for Cracovia. Still only 6 points. Already 6 points from safety after 12 games. You came second last year, and directly in front of them is the team that finished above them. What a weird season so far. We then found ourselves losing to a second tier side in the cup. That was until Ardvarai came out with a piece of magic. Beautiful skill, takes it past, and scores for us to find us at least at 1-1 before, in the 92nd minute, Simone Mazzocchi. I think this was his first goal for the club, and in fact, I believe both of these two scored their first goals for us in this game, and what an important one it was, just to save embarrassment. But after that, it was a relatively straightforward home defeat against Lech Poznan. We played well, they were just slightly better at taking their chances. We got one late on through Ardvarai again, wasn't enough. It was then time to face off against old foe Marko Božić and his side Brookbrek Niceca, and well, we started very, very strongly. Mazzocchi gave us the lead early on, Van den Bals added a second one not long after that, before, well, Božić got his revenge. Oh, 100%. This is like I used to say to Tony before we'd do... Oh, no! Cool. So that's a fun goal. Oh, it was Božić as well. He's like, Pog's like, I'm going to go for a shower now. I'm like, ooh, it means it's Mega Bonk time. That sounds horrendous if you don't know that Mega Bonk. Highlight that straight into a win in the cup against Jagiellonia, which is a huge win to knock them out with an own goal. And was quickly followed by another massive scalp, this time against Legia with a late one from Karamov in the 88th minute. We were flying and not even conceding anymore. And that trick of coming from behind was once again having to be put into action as we fell behind to an early penalty away at Wisła Płock and had to rely on an equaliser from Lelefeld of all people. But then the 91st minute came. Loads of first team guys. Hello, this is a great chance. It's Furman. Can he score the winner? Furman, yes! Alexander Furman, 91st minute winner. It gets better the more I look at it. And the results just kept coming. A 5-1 hammering of Korona Kielce, featuring a much more important moment than just the other 4 goals. Come on! 12 minutes to go. Benza from the spot. Here we go. Here we go. 54-year-old striker. We promised we'd get him a goal before he retired. Will he be able to complete the run up to the ball? If he misses this, I'm going to release him immediately. Panenka, I'm telling you. Benza from the spot. Down the middle. He's innocent on all charges. He was accused of being a terrible 54-year-old footballer, and he is not. But goals from Karamov, Ormic, Mazzocchi, and of course James Igbekeme, who'd found himself back in the team again after a poor start, just obliterated them. The run had seen us actually climb even further up the league into second place, just 2 points behind Jagiellonia, who we'd beaten in the cup already this year. At the time that we'd lost to Lech Poznan, we were then 7 points behind them in the league after the defeat, and they proceeded to then win none of their next 4 and draw 3 of them, which meant that we somehow went from 7 points behind to 2 points in front in the space of 4 matches because we won all of them. Rakov are now finally moving themselves back up the league after 5 consecutive victories. Cracovia still bottom, and now looking like a real favourite for relegation despite playing in the Europa League. Next, it was our turn to have a very strange game play out. We fell behind early on against GKS Katowice, but we'd been there before. We knew what to do in these situations. Got 3 goals. Furman, Rodado from the penalty spot, and Gilbert Bandano, who was now thriving in that number 10 spot rather than being pushed slightly further back. Brilliant, we thought. Except it was 3-3 by half-time as they got goals from Mukowski and Novak, and all of a sudden things started to get a little bit squiffy. That was until the 74th minute when they scored another goal, back post header I believe it was, to make it 4-3. Despite the fact we battered them, they had knocked us out of the cup, and that was 2 years in a row now that we'd gone out in really weird circumstances when everything was opening up. Top flight sides were going left, right and centre, and we were just one of them now. We were able to get back on track though against strugglers Górnik Zabrze. Burst of goals, Rodado from the spot, Wazicki scoring goal of the month here, and a rare moment for him even in the team this season. Bandama added another. We did concede one, but it didn't matter. 3-1 in the end, cruising. And that was all she wrote heading into the winter break, as we did make a few signings, which I'll show you in a sec. But first, as our return to the league happened, a 1-1 draw. We love a 1-1 draw. Just really wasn't our day. Young signing we made was Jeremy Koch from Aruba. Mostly because of his name, but also a bit of potential in there. I mean, yeah, Koch has got a hip injury. That doesn't really surprise me all that much. But the crucial part is he actually seems to have decent PA. Koch fits very well into the core group. A much better sign of our younger scouting, though, was Hassan Ranjbar, the Norwegian-Iranian central midfielder. At 16 years old, already had 2-star CA, and would definitely get some game time in the first team for the rest of the year, for free, from a team called Volda, I think. More quality from Arthur van der Werf, from a team called AFC in the Netherlands. Again, free transfer, they're free. And in that same boat was Drago Slavka, an 18-year-old Croat who we'd brought in from, I actually can't even remember. It was Grafica. Again, solid. Now, he can't tackle to save his life, which makes him a poor defender, I must admit, but maybe we could sell him to someone else who doesn't know that. The only player we signed for actual money, in fact, was £25,000 spent on Mikołaj Staniak. Now, the reason for this is, well, he came into stream. But not only did he come into stream, the team that he plays for in real life were playing Wisła in the Polish Cup that day, and he was going to be playing in that game. they won. They beat them 4-1, and he scored in the game. It's the least we could do is to bring him to the club, if nothing else. How sick is that, though? There were also a couple of outs. Camille Broda, our backup goalkeeper, as of this season at least, £61,000 went to Ulm. Forgotten man Julius Erteltaler finally left the club to join GKS Katowice. We figured it was payback for them knocking us out of the cup. The least they could do there was buy a player off of us, until they went one better. Paramat Ajvarai had asked to leave because he wasn't getting the game time he was promised because we'd signed better players. And so I said, screw it, I'll try and offer you out, see if anyone's interested. Katowice were very interested, so much so that they paid us £850,000 for him. He was here 6 months and we made 800 grand profit. Stonks, my friends, stonks. In his time with us, he'd played 6 games in the league and scored once. He was hardly ripping up trees. But more importantly than that was that after 20 games and that winter break, even with the draw, we were still top of the league. We finally had got to the summit. We're newly promoted, man. Crazy. 1 point clear of Jagiellonia. Now, crazily, also 1 point clear of Lechia Gdansk, who'd come out of nowhere under John Carver and were on an absolutely incredible winning run. To the surprise of nobody, Cracovia still rooted to the bottom, but now only 2 points from safety and looking pretty good. But one player you probably haven't heard me say as much about lately is Angel Rodado. He was really struggling, dropping a lot of 6.3s in games and just not getting involved. That was until we came up against Piast Gliwice again, and finally he was back. A goal, an assist, and an absolute obliteration in the first half an hour of this game gave us the dub. But even more powerfully was this incredible result away at Jagiellonia Białystok, because Yemka's early goal was all it took to win the match. They thought, though, they had a goal in the latter stages. No! I actually thought that was going to be offside. That's why I wasn't reacting. He looked like he was well off. Oh, wait, hang on. Have they fixed anything to do with VAR? Yes! Oh, he's miles offside. Wait, no, he's not, is he? Because that's not where the ball was taken, but... Oh, he is offside. Come on! That had actually given us a sizable lead at the top of the league. I believe 6 points, which was then made even better as a Mura ball lumped over the top in the snow. Rodado picks it up, skins the defender. 1-0 victory against Rakov again. We've done the double over them without conceding. They're the champions. We were then able to put a stop to Lechia's winning run as well. Grujic pouncing on a loose ball to make it 1-0. They equalised, but it didn't matter because James Igbekeme was there to be the hero in the 58th minute. It was especially nice as it was a lovely assist from Hassan Ranjbar. Going into the game against Motul Lublin, we just figured that we could not stop winning at this point. And then Rodado pulls off one of the most filthy things, taking the ball on the left-hand side, nutmegs the defender, jinks all over the place, slots it through for James to make it 1-0, and we never look back. He then grabs a goal of his own, because Yemka adds another one, and as usual, is the old suspects doing the business. Fun to see Hassam Aouar scoring a penalty, though, for Motul Lublin. That was cool. I think he scored against us in both games. It was then time for the derby, this time away from home. A 0-0 draw earlier this season had been crap, but, well, this one wasn't much better, honestly. 1-0 to us, though, crucially in our favour. Matsuki getting the goal off of a Furman assist. Huge win, and it muddied them even more. So naturally, it was then time to play against GKS Katowice, a team that just have the weirdest run of results against us, it seems, and today was no different. We found ourselves 3-0 down inside half an hour in this game. Mistake after mistake after mistake, and despite us absolutely hammering them for the rest of the match, 2 goals from Maciej Koziemka were not enough for us to get the game all the way back. We should have won, but we didn't, and it was right at that crucial moment where we could have started to really run away with things, as we'd already had 5 straight league wins up to that point. But even with that, we were still 3 points clear at the top with 7 matches to go, and genuinely thinking we might be able to win a title as a newly promoted side. Jagiellonia 3 points behind us. Lechia Gdansk had fallen down to 6 points behind us now, with Poznan climbing up. Cracovia were at least finally off the bottom, but we're now 8 points from safety. But then we had the youth intake, and finally, some delicious food. Bam! We got 2 guys with 5-star PA, 1 other guy who I can tell you that when we actually signed him, he also had 5-star PA. It's a good time. Damien and Mroj, just a solid... He's 6'3" at 15, can head like crazy. The weakest part of his game is the one thing that's easy to change. He is going to be a phenomenal player. And cool hair, similar to mine, I might say. Then there was Adrian Demacievich, who, despite not having the full potential here, if anything, looked the most complete right now. He was pacey, he could cross, he could tackle. Again, marking and positioning weak in his game, but we can improve that. He felt like the one that was most ready to actually get football soon, and decent on both feet. And lastly, the alleged hero of the bunch, Karol Stasiak, who had the highest CA, but we think a lot of that might be due to, we actually don't really know. Like, he's not the best of the bunch, I wouldn't say. And we're not quite sure what to do with him just yet, because he does lack that sort of passing ability to play the roles we want in our midfield. But either way, I think he's going to be an absolutely phenomenal player, and it's cool to have some great Polish core coming through, because one thing I want to make sure we do in this save, more so than normal building a nation, is have more homegrown players that have actually come from that nation, since we've actually got an academy capable of producing them. That would be really, really sick to always have 3 or 4 of these guys in our starting 11 at any given time. That's what I'm hoping to do. Obviously, it won't always happen, but still, it'd be nice to bring these guys through. I want the next Blaise Lisic. Remember him? But it was time to get back to business in the league, and we had a crucial game against the newly promoted side along with us, and we did the normal thing, go behind. And then the unlikely hero of Dario Van Furman boys got 2 goals for us to pull it back around again. A red card just outside the area for Woods made it even more difficult before Rodado put the icing on the cake. And then things started to go a little bit wrong. James Igbekeme had given us the lead against Pogon, but it was wiped out just 10 minutes later off a lovely assist from Sam Greenwood of all people. But then back in front through Simone Matsoki in the 72nd minute, and then we just gave Paul Mukairu as much pace as he could possibly desire inside our penalty area until he eventually just slotted home the equaliser, and a 2-2 draw against a really struggling side was not what we needed. Then made even worse by us losing comfortably 3-0 to Lech Poznan. Easily our worst performance of the year. We did nothing and deserved every bit of that defeat, but suddenly we'd completely lost our lead. With 4 matches to go, we had 2 quite difficult games and 2 quite easy games. The first one was one of the tougher ones, but we came through with flying colours. Because if at first you don't succeed, trust a 17-year-old striker to get you the goals that you need. First in the 8th minute and then in the 83rd minute, Alexander Furman beating Marco Bozic's boys back into the dust. I don't think he even played in this game. He was fearing us. But the thing to remember is while all this was going on, Lechia Gdansk was suddenly putting on an absolute clinic in just winning matches. In fact, they just recorded their 6th consecutive league victory in the background and were now just 1 point behind us. But then came an even more important and perhaps pivotal moment for us. 2 goals from Angel Rodado gave us the dub, 2-0 away at Legia Warszawa. 2 of the tougher games were out of the way and we'd got the results. We just felt now if we could win our 2 easy games, we could actually take home the title. We were on 69, they were on 68. Jagiellonia and Lech Poznan were completely out of the way. It was a 2-horse race and we had the games to win. So naturally, we didn't. Jimmy got Wisła Płock an early lead and we were just simply never able to recover properly from this one. Right before the hour mark, Bandama did at least get us back into the match, but it wasn't enough. We huffed and puffed and could not get the result. Lechia, of course, recorded what was, I think, their 8th consecutive win at this point. And then finally, for the first time in a while, in fact, we were off the top and they were top going into the final day and it was no longer in our hands. We had to better their result on the final day in order to win the league. And with the run that they were on and the team that they were playing, that seemed a bit unlikely as they were going to be away at 13th place. Not easy for us. They'd won 8 in a row and 11 of their last 13 and had rocketed up the league. Let's let the story of the final day tell itself, shall we? So their game is there, away at Łódź. And they've scored already. They're already winning. As long as we can get ourselves in front, then it would just take 1 goal to change things. And we might be able to do so because Yamka has scored. Okay, game on, baby. Out of his feet with 1 touch and then just bends it far post. Oh, he's like a Polish Harry Wilson. Okay, second goal here, and at least we can relax on the result. Oh, hang on. Go on, Furman. Bang it. Oh, my God. Goal of the season. Legitimately goal of the season right there. It's going to be ultimately meaningless, but that is the best goal we've scored all season. What a strike from the 17-year-old. On the up bounce. Bang. Outside of the foot. That is... Wait, there's been a goal. It's 1-1. It's 1-1. They've scored. Holy, this should not be as nail-biting as it is. Ball in. Well, I probably shouldn't have said that part out loud. That would make me a lot happier. Oh, for God's sake. Okay, so wasn't quite what I had in mind there. It's 2-1 to Lechia again. They let us believe for a fraction of a second. 2-2! They're back level! It's 2-2! Come on, 15 minutes away. Yes! 17-year-old scores the winning goal and wins us the title. Alexander Furman wins us the league with that absolute belter. Oh. Come on. Get in, lads. Wow. I mean, we nearly bottled it to them as well, didn't we? But my goodness me. Carver? Never heard of him. It's all about Widzenia. Champions of Poland. Top flight, first season up, and we've won the title. On the final day. Truly an unbelievable moment to see us crowned champions. And it's so fitting that Alexander Furman's, for me, goal of the season, the Travella from outside the area, was what essentially ended up being the game-winning goal there that won us that. I couldn't believe it that Lechia threw that result away. When they got the second goal, we thought it was curtains and we were just lucky to still be in there and it was all gone. But that late goal, which turned out to be a penalty as well, by the way, absolute scenes. We were so lucky to win the title because of the way we nearly bottled it at the end, but also we were newly promoted. And absolutely, I don't think I've ever managed to have that happen to me before, frankly. I did not expect that from us in this season, especially as we didn't really push the boat out too much on heavy signings. Most of these guys that were doing stuff for us this year were a lot of the same guys that got us promoted last year. They've just done the business. And now we can invest in youth to continue that method for next year. We may not win it again next year straight away with the European football on the side, but even so, our expectations are going to be rock bottom anyway. Shout out to Cracovia, who managed to get themselves relegated after coming second last year. Not the best season from them, although it could have been worse. Barely. Not entirely sure how many European places we will actually have for Poland for next season. I believe it is the 4, but I don't know if this screen updates properly. So it's us and Lechia Gdansk in the Champions League, we think, and then Lech Poznan and Jagiellonia. We don't know if Legia will be getting a European spot or not because of this. Polish friends, has this ever happened? I mean, Lech Poznan will probably embarrass them, but the fact that they got there at all. Lech Poznan needed extra time to win the Polish Cup final against Legia's B team. They didn't face a single top flight team on the entire way there. And then they were 2-0 up against Lech Poznan's first team. We checked the team that they put out in this game. From what I was told by chat, this was all actual young players that they put out. It wasn't a first team squad. It was genuinely their B team. Now, they wouldn't have qualified for Europe. There are rules about that, but that is mental. Krzyżanowski won Young Player of the Season, which is totally understandable. Grujic won Defender of the Season. Again, a guy from last season. He also made it into the Team of the Season along with Krzyżanowski and James Igbekeme, thanks to his mostly fantastic second half of the year. No room for Maciej Koziemko, who was literally our top scorer this season, but such is life. The kid managed 14 goals. Now, you might notice his average rating is quite low, and we feel like that is often because he still hasn't learned that central midfield role, and he tends to get quite inconsistent in matches as a result of that, and when he's not getting results in games, he does seem to just get a horrendous rating, so maybe that's why he missed out. But 14 goals is insane from number 10, 13 for Rodado in the end, 7 for Furman. Like, it's not a great return, but he scored important goals, and that's a crucial part. Top assister this year, to no one's real surprise, is Krzyżanowski, but Igbekeme in there with 8. A surprising number for Iliano Reinders, despite the fact that he decided that he wanted to leave and may well do so in the summer. Bandama definitely needs more football next year. He got 5 assists as well. Rodada with 5. It's just a good season from the same guys, but you'll notice a lot of these names are guys that were there last year. With a few little additions, I think this team, carrying a lot of these guys through, could still do mad bits in Europe next year. Obviously, we're not going to get in the Champions League groups. But if we end up in the Conference League, that's totally fine too. I'd love that. Because as a result of all this, the board have given us £7.5 million, which is what we're going to be spending over on stream right now, and £75,000 a week in wages. Which means we can finally start doing a little bit more of the transfer room in stuff I've been working on. I've been itching to actually use it properly in this save, and now's the time for it, particularly as the board only expect us to be competitive in Europe next year. As for the second tier, Lubin coming up, Radomiak Radom going with them as well, and remarkably, there will still be 2 teams from Krakow in the top flight next year. It's just these guys instead of Cracovia. I love that this is going to happen. Cannot wait to send them back down again. So what happened to the other Polish teams in Europe this year without us? Starting with our Conference League boys, well, you can see Jagiellonia actually won the damn group. Didn't lose a single game, won every single match. Finished ahead of Brighton. Insane results. One thing I'm going to work on for the next recap is to find a better way to actually show you some of their fixtures, because there is not a great way of filtering it, but I will figure it out. Even if I have to make graphics myself, we will figure out how to do that. But for now, they smashed it. Shout out to Legia as well, coming 9th. Just narrowly missed out on actually getting into the top 8, which is a bit of a shame. Rakov, despite their poor season in the league, did still come 19th and qualify for the next round, where sadly they then lost to Zrinjski Mostar. Odd one. Meanwhile, Legia were going through easily against Fredrikstad. In the round of 16, it was time for Jagiellonia to bow out. Weirdly. Despite winning the whole damn thing, knocked out to Swedish side Djurgården on penalties. Unlike Legia, who once again progressed through, this time against Norwegian side Molde, once again looking like they could reach the semis just like last year. That was until they met Brighton and lost 4-0 on aggregate. That was always going to be tough, but once again, semi-final last year, quarter-final this year, good points. And the reason I've not mentioned Cracovia, because they were in the Europa League, did nothing. Came 30th in the group, did absolutely nothing whatsoever, to the surprise of nobody. But what that meant for us on the year, 5th place on the season, 11.3 points, and these are correct now, we know. That's a hell of a year, considering we weren't in Europe or doing anything like that. If teams like Legia and Jagiellonia can actually do that with us in Europe too, that's the sort of thing that could start to get Poland really cooking. Now, what it means for us for next year is that we do actually move up the coefficient chart slightly. That win over the Norwegian teams, getting all knocked out at the same time, is pretty damn fruitful for us as well. We go above Norway, above Greece, and above Switzerland into 11th place. Still not entirely sure if that does give us another European spot, because the screen that shows that appears to be absent. Yeah, I don't actually know. I think we will be going back to 5 European places very soon though, but the point is we're on the up, and next year we're in Europe too, which is very, very exciting. And in case you're wondering, Sven's ladies team got relegated, along with Legia, who they came up with. They were doing absolutely fine until the last 4 games. They were miles clear, and then the teams below them started winning, and they just lost all of them and got relegated. Ugh, Svenny boy, what you doing? Didn't help that at one point they only had 2 players that were fit in their entire squad. So what of next year? Our aim is quite simple. We want to be able to compete in some kind of European Championship group phase. We're expecting the Conference League, although there might be a way that we end up in the Europa League. We're definitely not going to get into the group stages of the Champions League this season, but that's fine. We don't expect to. We want to sign young, again, to keep this team building through, bring our Polish talent through with us, and see what we can do over the coming seasons. As for the league, I don't know if we're going to win it next year. We might do, but I think the extra games will definitely get in the way of that, and that's fine. We won't be expected to. We're just going to be hoarding wonder kids for later from obscure countries like Burkina Faso and Togo. So if that sounds like the type of recruitment you're a fan of, then hop over to stream right now where we are doing exactly that. I'm probably haven't pressed the spacebar in 3 hours. sat there looking at players with international caps who are under the age of 17. It's going to be a whale of a time, and I'll be in an absolutely wonderful sweater. That I can guarantee you. I can't guarantee you fun, but I can guarantee you a fun sweater. And it's not this one. So, if you've enjoyed this video, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Hold your gun, capybara, bye-bye.